here. Like, I don't have to go over there and answer a bunch of questions. This is like, it's literally me and Kyle, and like maybe one or two other people in here max.
Right.
So yeah,
cool, man. Let's wrap for a few minutes before we get started.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, we can go sit in there too and just kind of get everything settled. Yes. Work in progress, but we got
nice.
We got this. We do shoots here. We do whatever. We come in here. We film a bunch of stuff. We do a lot in the studio, and then we just kind of
cool, man.
Put it out there.
Yeah, I got you something, bro.
Oh, sweet. Thanks.
Fresh off the press, one of the first batches. I got you something.
We got some gear. We got some swag.
You gotta be part of the tribe, bro. You are a top producer, right?
100%.
You're a top producer, Andy, right?
Oh, I love it, dude. Thank you.
I got it large. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Looks like you're leaning out a little bit.
I've been trying, man. I've been really mindful of what I actually eat and put in my body.
Cool.
Thank you.
We're gonna do some push-ups before we start.
Dude, that's how. Dude, it's a shift move. Speaking of swag, I just got this thing. So this company looked me up through a podcast I did with Brad Lee, your buddy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's called Love Handle. His guy Mike sent me a bunch of these things. It's a URL code. You scan it. You can download both my books for free, and then you get this. And he sent me a big old box of them.
So there's a gift that comes with it.
Yeah. So this is for your cell phone, because
those like cool. I was gonna do the same thing. Remember the wristbands that you got like in the Wheaties box?
That's right.
That like Jordan everybody used to wear. So those are like faded away, right?
Yeah.
The sweatbands, the wristbands. So I was gonna have those made with mine.
Dude, you should bring those back.
Hand those out.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Like those little takeaway things.
Bring them back.
They work.
Because you can wear them while you're working. It's kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
And the whole idea is like
you're like, that'd be good footage.
Yeah.
That would be good footage.
I like this.
How people are trying to speed up that in a bullshit way. Like there's a way to add value every day to this world.
Man, I'm 15 years deep into my career, right? 25 years deep in sales, professional selling. If that's the gateway you need because your intention is to provide for your family or to be secure enough to commit to your relationship or to finally give back to the people who helped raise you or to finally pay off mom's house one day, if that's the gateway drug that you need to success, go ahead and do it. Just know at some point in time, people are going to be able to know clearly whether or not you actually provide value. It's with Andy Dane Carter. This guy is a genius. Go check out his page. I'm going to drop the link right now. This podcast is coming out. It's an hour of fire. We'll let you know when it comes out. Love you.
What's happening, everybody? Today on the Andy Dane Carter Show, we have a very special guest. My guy Joe is in the house, and Joe is going to break down a lot for you guys. But first, I want to give you a quick little intro on what Joe is about. My guest today has privately mentored over 300 companies, thousands of people over the past 12 years in person. This is a belly-to-belly, high-level coach. Like, he gets in the game. This is not virtual. He gets in. He has worked with some of the biggest companies out there: Bank of America, Microsoft, Wells Fargo, Equinox, Valvados, dozens and dozens and dozens of industries. The guy has what it takes to get this thing done. And what I love about my guy Joe here is he's gone broke a couple times, like me. So we like to be around like-minded people that know what it takes to build and know what it takes to dust yourself off when you hit the ground. Right. So my guest today, Joe, is going to go into his backstory real quick on where he's from, what he's about, and how he basically built the armor and the metal to be where he's at today.
All right, I'll make it quick because there's a lot of good stories out there.
I bet.
All right, story time needs to be cut down to like 4 minutes. So all those influencers out there like, I was broke, I lived on the street, I lived in a cardboard box. Okay, bro. So we know that's something to be respected. We know that a lot of people that we admire have had stories like that. But to give you the short story, Dane, I grew up in the Midwest, born and raised in the Midwest, a small city called Peoria, Illinois. It was an all-American city for a long time, the home of Caterpillar Tractor Factory and a lot of labor workers and skilled men. Really good family, thank God. You know, I was brought up in a really solid family, even though my parents were immigrants and, you know, didn't really make tons of money, just enough to raise 4 children. We had great values, so I'm blessed. I'm happy for that. I would say probably by the age of 9, I started to realize that, you know, I had the gift of gab. So you name it. There's a lot of you out there right now listening to me who sold the cheese and sausage in school and the candy bars and the contest, and you wanted to win the bike and the boom box and all the other stuff. And you were getting at it. And, you know, I remember I wanted some new Jordans back then. Imagine this is like in the late 80s, early 90s, right?
I remember.
Jordans were still like $150 a piece.
Yep.
So, and back then, the one of the Jordans that had just come out were the black patented leather Jordans, right? The retros, the ones that are super popular. So it was the first version of $150. So I was like, man, I got to get these Jordans. You know what I'm saying? And you ask mom, like, ask my mom to buy a pair of $150 shoes. Like,
no.
Yeah, right. Go get those ponies or.
That's right.
Right. So anyway, so, you know, I kind of, you know, learned to hustle a little bit here and there, given the resources that I had at a young age. But, you know, I'm going to give you the short version. After college, I graduated, you know, with 2 degrees, international business and a minor in marketing, which I didn't do very well in school, by the way. The main reason I went to school was primarily because I felt I had a responsibility to honor my parents for going through all the things that they went through, leaving their loved ones back home.
Because that's the way out for you in their minds, right?
Yeah, so many miles away. It's the reason why they made sacrifices.
Of course.
And I'm the youngest of 4, and nobody else graduated from college. They're all doing well, but nobody else graduated from college, and I felt like I was the last Mohican.
Sure.
You know, so that was 5 years of my life right there.
I get it.
I ended up moving to Chicago, of course, getting back into sales, meeting people, doing reasonably well. Got a great job with a tech company. I'm the youngest person in that company. Became one of the regional sales directors with that company. It was a smaller team, but we did big projects like $10 to $15 million projects. We supported like SAP software and stuff like that.
Nice.
Which I knew nothing about, but I had the gift.
But you can sell, so it
gap,
doesn't matter.
Right?
It doesn't matter.
So 9/11 hits. I get laid off within 3 months. Can't find a job. Well, I found 3 jobs. I was working as a customer service manager. I was back to doing personal training at night. And I was even doing dance choreography with kids on the weekend.
Hey, whatever you got to do.
For extra cash, right? And I was still living paycheck to paycheck. Because when you're 21 years old and you make a lot of money, what do you do with it?
Spend it.
That's right.
100%.
So, you know, I was going through that whole thing, and about 9 months went by, and I got a phone call from a buddy of mine who had moved to California because his parents retired out here. And it was like middle of winter. It was like late January, you know, kind of like this time of year in Chicago. So it's not exactly like
you're like, I'm
warm
out.
and sunny. And I'm like, hey, what's up, dude? And he's like, yo, man, I love it out here. He didn't say come out here. He just said, dude, I love it out here. It's sunny. It's warm. Everybody's making money. The chicks are hot. It's so cool. Blah, 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 blah. I got this job. And I was like, cool, dude, cool. You know, in the back of my mind, you know, and I'm thinking like I'm
what a
thinking
dick.
Like, FML,
yeah, exactly.
Dude. So I went to bed that night, woke up the next morning, and looked outside, and it was gray and icy and cold. You know, in Chicago in the winter, you have to go outside and start your car and come back inside to give it time to melt all the ice off the car. We don't have those problems in California.
We don't. We're the opposite.
Raining,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It rains, we freak out. Car accidents everywhere.
Yep.
And I was thinking to myself, I walked back inside, and I was just checking my bank account because I had some bills coming up. And I'm like, I'm going to be at 0 again this month. And I thought, I can be 0 anywhere. I can be broke anywhere. It does not limit my position.
Yep.
And so I took $500 out of my bank account, gave it to my roommate. I'm like, you take this, use it for next month. Right? Within 48 hours, I was out. Peace.
Nice.
Hit the road. I bought a crap load of junk food at 7-Eleven, hit the road, headed out to California. I was able to orchestrate getting a job my first day in California because of some of the sales skills I had acquired, which was at LA Fitness.
Nice.
Back in the health club industry.
I remember.
Do what you know.
My dad used to build those way back in the day when they were called Family Fitness.
Oh, wow.
He used to build them out of San Diego when they started, way, way, way back in the day.
I mean, to me, it was like, hey, I didn't know anybody. Well, I knew one person, but he was doing his own thing. My credit was shot, right? I didn't really have any cash. I couldn't open a bank account for, you can probably guess the reasons.
Of course.
And I'm like, look, I'll just live in my car. So I live in this hand-me-down, you know, beat-up Dodge Intrepid that my brother had to give me because I was struggling so bad in Chicago. And I just slept in the front seat with all my crap in the back. and that went on for 4.5 months until I grew my network a little bit. And then there was something happening around that time called the mortgage boom.
The boom.
And they're like, yo, you should get into this industry. So I did. I joined a small team of, 16 people at that time. And we grew to about 600 people.
Sounds familiar.
Within 4 years.
Yep.
And I actually, now to flip the page, it was in January of 2006, before the crash, that I had the epiphany, I need to get out there. There's something was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't pinpoint it, but I'm like, I love teaching. And I'm seeing all these coaches basically just reiterate. I love all the material.
Mm-hmm.
But they're basically just reiterating Tony Robbins' material,
Yep.
Brian Tracy's material,
Mm-hmm.
Ty Boyd, Zig Ziglar, and putting their own spin on it. And I never really went to one of those seminars or workshops and came back and knew exactly what to change in my sales. It's not like I could get on the phone and be like, hey, ma'am, the reason you should do it is because focus equals reality.
Right.
And if you just focus,
it's the
you'll
biggest
be fine.
problem. Like all this stuff,
Yeah.
like from start to finish. If you don't have a definitive strategy and plan that you
Right.
can and you can take it tomorrow
Right.
and implement it and get some results, it's not sustainable.
Right. So that's kind of, that was the time frame that it took me to realize I want to be more of a mentor. And it wasn't because I had everything figured out. It was because I didn't have things that I figured out. I'll give you an example. I was helping to lead a team of dozens of sales agents at the age of 27, 28 years old, even younger, 25, 26, 27. And now what I realize is most people who are sales professionals get promoted because of their numbers, not because of their leadership experience.
Agreed.
And so, one of the things that was frustrating me, and it's difficult to be honest with yourself when you're not getting the outcome that you should. It's difficult to be honest and say, maybe it's me.
Right.
Right. And I realized, when you interview, this goes out to everybody out there who has hired people, recruited people, or worked alongside other entrepreneurs, sales professionals, sales managers, etc. You guys are going to relate big time. So when you interview somebody and you get excited to bring them on, everybody's all fine and dandy, right? Everybody's super excited, super pumped. Yo, we just picked up this new guy. He's going to crush it. In like 80 to 90% of the time, 2 months later, what's happening?
It's all unfolding. Or they do crush it and then they go on to manage even though they're not supposed to because of their sales, or they killed the interview and their production levels are low. So actually both happens.
There you go. Which one happens the majority of the time?
They fall on their face.
Yeah. And they don't mean to. They just do.
Right.
So they get trapped into this kind of like matrix of mediocrity. And you're like, oh, you either have it or you don't. And I'm sure you guys have heard of the 80-20 rule, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody preaches the 80-20 rule. I fucking hate the 80-20 rule.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine how many kids you have, Andy?
2.
You have 2 kids. Okay.
Yep.
Imagine you had 3 more.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
No, I'm good. I'm good though, but thank you.
Let's say Andy had 10 kids.
Yeah.
Would you watch your kids and once they hit the age of 5, go, look, these 2 kids are going to be successful. The other 8, let's just give up on.
And I'm going to pour into these 2 instead.
That's what the 80-20 rule says.
I get it.
It says that 80% of your production is going to come from 20% of your people.
Mm-hmm.
How degrading is that?
It's a horrible philosophy.
It's degrading, isn't
course.
it? How many people do you hear out there preach, the 80-20 rule?
Mm-hmm.
You're always going to have. Really?
Mm-hmm.
That basically says don't give a shit about the other people. Just let them do their onesies and twosies and have a mediocre life so they can barely provide for their family, barely have any freedom or control over their financial stability. And the next time the economy crashes, they're going to go broke again.
Again.
Right? So I'm like, that can't be the case. That can't be the case. I think what's happening here is we don't know how to properly teach people. We don't know how to teach people. And we don't necessarily know what skills to teach them. We only know what we know.
That's right. And you bring up a fantastic point. That's an amazing segue for a lot of stuff we talked about off camera before we started. The education system is broken. I mean, it's so broken. It's obnoxious. And you just hit on a really good point where we don't know what to teach them. Mm-hmm. And I understand the old 60-year philosophy is that's part of going to college is figuring out who you are and what you can do.
Right.
We can fast track the shit out of that.
Sure.
I mean, yes, there's tests out there, and you can find out if you're blue, red, or green, or you can find out if you're a type A.
Right.
There's ways to get to what you need to do faster.
Sure.
And walk the audience through some of your skill sets that you've been able to master and then implement and then help these larger companies put into place.
Yeah. So, when I talked to you on the phone the other day, I said we have to be very careful about how we communicate. The educational system is broken.
Right.
Because we're not telling people take your kids out of school.
Of course.
That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is start paying attention to what's happening in the economy, start going online and doing some research, and start supplementing your kids' education with proper skills.
Yes. And maybe mentorship.
That's what we're saying.
Right.
Until, some of us, hopefully sooner than later, have the leverage that we need to join forces and create what my ultimate big dream is. Are you ready for this? This is the first time I've ever said it on a podcast.
Bring it.
I want to create the greatest school in America,
I love it.
where everyone has access. I don't care if you live in downtown Chicago or Beverly Hills. I want this thing to be affordable for everyone. I want all of the major influencers who teach success, mindset, skill sets, communication, systems, technology, marketing, you name it. I want them all to join together and give some of their time to create courses. There'll be local facilitators, tests, the whole thing, right? We have online schooling already. We just need better material. So the long-term vision is that.
Okay.
It's not like, I don't want to necessarily die being the number one sales coach in the world.
Right.
Which there are many sales coaches out there who would argue that they are.
Right.
But we going to see. We going to see about that.
We like to look at tax returns and we like to look at
the only
numbers.
difference between some of them out there and me is they spent more time on social media than I have in the past 8 years.
Yeah.
That's the only difference. The other difference is that I'm probably going to be a lot more modern in my material. But we'll talk about that another day, won't we?
Absolutely.
So let's get back to the educational system.
Okay, so here's a part I would love for you to touch on as well.
Yeah.
So, and there's so many professional athletes out there and so many famous singers and actors and whatever, where you see a certain quality in a child or you see a certain skill set,
Right.
like that child's baby special, or they're really talented at skateboarding or they're a really talented surfer or they're like, you see something
So
where
how many children are special?
all of them.
There you go.
But what you have to find out is what are you special at and then give them as much love. And our society
Right.
likes to really put people up that are doing things that are in the norm. So what I'm saying though is like is how do we get to the place where somebody that's really good at writing copy has just as much like cred as somebody that's singing the lyrics that the copywriter wrote. So I'm trying to figure out how do we identify those things early in our kids to give them the highest and best shot.
I don't have a perfect answer for you, right? We would have to sit there and think about that, but I can tell you this. In many countries, especially where my parents come from, you are taught to help run the family business at like the age of 8, 9, or 10 years old.
That's right.
And parents will leave, and you're fine. You know how to run it. You know how to, whatever, stitch the fabric. You know how to make the wood. You know how to make the cut. My father was pulled out of school at the age of 9 to help his father in the carpentry business and was completely capable of running that business by the age of 13. This is going to sound a little jaded, and a couple other people are finally catching on to this, but our educational system as we know it was created after World War I or during the Industrial Revolution.
To create employees.
And most people prior to having big factories were skills men. Okay, you taught your son your skill. One was a woodsman. The other one was a tailor. The other one did carpentry. Another one did designing. Another one did art. Right. You know how difficult it is to convince an entrepreneur to come to a factory and bolt bolts on a wheel for 10 hours a day? Could I ever convince you of that?
100% no.
For a modest wage.
Unless you're Carnegie and you get together and you try to create the empire of the education
what we need
system.
to do, and guys pay attention, because parents, those of you who are out there very loving and supportive and hardworking, encouraging your kids to do great at social studies and great at trigonometry. And dude, I'm horrible at math.
Me too.
So if I'm 8 years old and you're telling me I'm not going to be successful if I don't get an A in trigonometry, my fucking hopes are starting to give up.
And your self-confidence goes to zero.
By the way, during the most crucial learning years of my life.
That's right.
So be careful. The message should be more like, look, you're not that great at social studies. You're not that great at trigonometry. You're not that great in this subject, but do your best and prove that you can do pretty well, even though it's not one of your natural talents. Don't worry, little son, little girl. You have massive talents in area A, in area B, in area C, but you've kind of got to prove that you can do a good job at almost everything in front of you, but you don't have to master everything in front of you.
Right.
That's kind of the message. So really what happened was, and the way I understand it is, we went to Europe after World War I, us, France, and Great Britain, and we recruited some master psychologists. By the way, some of them worked with Germany and Italy during the you-know-what.
Yep.
And we asked them, how do we create a schooling system where we can condition and program people to become workers for us?
Employees. Exactly.
Employees, which is fine. We need that. Like my father, there's several people in my family who are quote-unquote employees that have amazing lives, very happy.
I agree.
We need that in our system. So whether you're an employee or entrepreneur is not the determining factor. It's whether you're an employee or an entrepreneur, you need to level up much quicker. This is the new economy, and there are things that you don't know yet.
And let's talk about that, because that is a big part that I really want to drive home to this audience, is how things have changed, over the past 40 years with social media, with the way people learn, and at the rate and pace they learn at.
Okay, so this was a game changer for me. And one of the frustrations that you share with other mentors, coaches, teachers, whatever, is you're asking yourself, why do people learn so slow? Why do we repeat the same things? Just take a look at sales professionals. I've mentored over 20 industries, over 350 companies. And no matter what industry you go to, there's basically 4 or 5 challenges that a customer can bring up. And you hear those every single day. But your numbers stay the same or go up a little bit and down a little bit. You need to do the same shit every single day. If this was an athlete, what would you expect to happen to their shooting percentage over time?
It would go down.
Okay. So that was the first realization I had, is how is it that we keep repeating the same thing every single day? We keep hearing the same challenges every single day. And I'm teaching people new skills on how to handle that. But either they're resistant to learning or they just don't learn fast enough. And if you're not careful, you can discourage talented people.
Agreed.
And you can fire them too early.
Yep.
I have dozens of testimonials from business owners saying this person was struggling and now they're a top producer.
Yep.
And it's because I figured a couple things out. So when I spoke the reason I spoke at Microsoft was because of one thing, was after I created the concept of domination economy. And the concept of domination economy basically means this is an economy where you have to learn a domination mindset. It's not so that you can put others down. It's so that you can constantly keep yourself in a peak performance mode, which means you have to learn faster, you have to implement quicker, you have to practice more, etc. Just like a true champion would. Okay.
And it's the whole thing. It's health. It's mental capacity. It's all those things. It's not just
that would be ideal.
Right.
That would be ideal.
Right.
But we're not here, to change all 3 things.
Agreed.
In 1 hour.
Right.
What I will say is the one thing that helps people to make progress in life is to perfect wherever it is that they spend the most time. So if you spend the most time at home with your children as a mother or father, then you need to make massive progress in that area, and that will fulfill you.
Agreed.
If you spend the majority of your time in a sales office, you better make progress in your conversion ratio over time because it'll feel like it's worthwhile. I don't care where you're at, what relationship you're in. If either person is not making significant progress in some important area of their own life, they're either going to digress in their career and in their income, or there's going to be drama in the relationship.
And resentments, and it just starts from there.
So you asked me about the new economy. I'll give you an example. And I've only spoken about this in front of a few key audiences. And then, of course, my private clients are aware of it because you have to build self-awareness. I have to get people to understand the psychology of this before I teach the skills. This is not about writing scripts and using one-liners and tie-down questions. That's not how I develop people. Yes, we do work on their language, and I'll get to that in a bit. But more importantly, have to understand why they're trapped in what I call the matrix of mediocrity. In the 80s, let's just say the 80s, it was a completely different economy than where we are right now, right? I'm going to say in the 80s, the way you were taught to learn, the rate at which you were taught to learn was still suffice. You could graduate, learn a new skill, become a mechanic, become an engineer,
go get a job,
become an attorney, whatever the case would be, go get a job, and you would be fine for 20, 30 years based on what was happening in the economy. The value that you provided could sustain itself for an extended period of time. So I created this concept called 2 things that you need to know. One is economic velocity. Economic velocity.
It's really important. So write that down if you have a pen and paper.
Yeah, you guys, by the way, for the audience out there, not only do I really respect you for listening to shows like this because it is an investment of time. And you could be out there watching or listening to some other bullshit on the radio or on TV. But once you hear this conversation, you now have a responsibility to go out there and share this with everyone that you care for. You now have a responsibility to do that once we drop this value on you. So economic velocity is the rate at which the economy advances, innovates, changes, accelerates. That's economic velocity. The second part of this equation is called intellectual velocity. Intellectual velocity is the rate at which each individual adapts, learns, changes, and accelerates their skills, their mindset, their awareness, their value. You get it?
That means there are two sports cars going down the road.
Yeah, one is the economy and one is you.
That's right.
One is you. Now the
Just
economy,
to paint the picture for you
right.
guys.
So let's say in the 80s, which some of our listeners weren't even alive. Some of them were,
A lot of them.
do breakdancing or something
That's
in
right.
the basement, like me on a piece of cardboard.
Me too, man. I remember.
Good times, dude. Still got those skills. Well, I kind of do.
I got some of them, yeah.
So let's just say the economy moved at 55 miles per hour. Well, that's cool because we were the educational system, the way we're taught, the way our parents brought us up, our workplace allowed us to adapt and learn at 55 miles per hour, cruise control. Let's move forward to the 90s. Okay, things are advancing a bit. Bill Gates is selling the dream. There's going to be a computer on, in every household. People are fighting him, all right? Cell phones are starting to come out a little bit more. Everybody in the family needs one. People were still saying, no, my husband has one. One is enough. Get it?
All right.
Internet was creeping up. AOL, Netscape was hitting the scene. So we're kind of getting used to that. People are still resistant. So let's say the economy's new velocity jumped up to about 75 miles per hour. However, the way we learned was still set at 55 miles per hour.
That's right.
So it's not that noticeable yet, but it's creeping in. Let's go to 2000 plus. There's a lot more happening now. There's a lot more internet action. E-commerce is starting to grow. Companies like Amazon and other types of platforms are starting to creep up and hit the scene. Social media is starting to become acceptable for the youth, and then it's bleeding over into the mature audience as well. So now we're looking at economic velocity of, let's say, around 100 miles per hour, 150 miles per hour. But the rate at which we adapt is still stuck at what?
55.
55.
So we got a Volkswagen Bug with like a flat tire-ish.
But you don't know you're a Volkswagen.
But you don't know you're a Volkswagen Bug.
You think you're a Corvette.
You think you're a Corvette or a Ferrari.
Right. You think you're a Corvette or Ferrari because that's how you were conditioned to think.
Of course.
I went to school. I have a degree where I was taught, or I have a skill, or I was a technician, or I have experience. Oh, my God. Don't get me started on experience.
Well, and it's that old saying that we've all heard 100,000 times. Go to college, get a good job, put money in a retirement fund, and retire and fish and play golf.
Yeah, we know that. But the best part of this conversation is going to be probably in the last 15 minutes.
Sure.
Where we just drop it hard.
Of course.
It's going to be uncomfortable and exciting at the same time. But you guys just sit there and take it, okay? Because you're going to need this. And I hope you share this too. I'm going to get back to 2008. 2008, I had been 2 years into my coaching business. Broke as, can I say it?
I mean, you can cuss all day long on here.
Broke as fuck.
Yep, I get it,
Right?
man.
I'm not good with those high notes anymore. But again, after the mortgage business, which is a common story, especially here on the West Coast, right? But at this point in time, I'm walking in telling companies, hey, if you pay me in advance, I'll train your people. And even though it's tough times, your sales will go up. And the biggest answer I got was, who are you?
Yeah, who are you again?
What industry were you in? Yeah, we don't associate with that anymore.
That's right.
So I'm like, crap. So it was an uphill battle. However, I did notice one thing. Technology never stopped.
Never does.
It accelerated even more. It's like with the temporary collapse of the mortgage and real estate market, which is a cycle we all know we should leverage now, right? We'll talk about that in a minute too. You're the expert on that. I was like, whoa, things are moving even faster now. So
because the opportunity is just quintupled.
Yeah, well, what starts happening now is innovation is happening at a rate that we just cannot control. Like every year, we create as much advancements in technology and social behavior as we did in the previous 100 years.
Of course.
So every year, we create as much as we used to over 100 or 200 years.
I agree.
And that's accelerating. That's economic velocity. By the way, the economy, when I say the new economy, it's all things economy. It includes technology. It includes human behavior. It includes communication skills.
Real estate, everything.
Real estate, how you invest, what you're focused, how you raise your family, your relationship, how you date, all things economy. How you buy, how you make buying decisions, who you trust, who you don't. It's all things economy, right? That's all adapting very quickly, growing, changing very quickly. So now we're no longer at a 100 miles per hour or 150 or 200. We're now, our economic velocity is now changing exponentially, which means you're going to have to build learning. Okay? You're going to have to build learning and practice into your everyday plan. It's going to have to become a normal part of your day.
That's right.
Some type of study. Well, what do I study? I get that question all the time. What should I read? How the fuck should I know?
What do you like?
What area of your life are you working on?
And you spend a lot of time on, right? Like we talked about earlier.
Sure. Are you in sales? Then go study sales. Well, what do I study? Dude, you got the whole world in the palm of your hand. Start typing shit into the Google bar, and before you know it, you'll have relevant topics. So, it's just a pet peeve of mine where people have all the resources that they have these days, and they don't even take the first step on their own. That type of person, I'm not ready to help. I don't know about you.
100%. And that's, I literally started on this path of real estate when I wasn't working. I was training to be a professional triathlete. Wow. And I would listen to real estate investing audiobooks on 6-hour bike rides before I ever passed the real estate exam. I was prepping myself using these technologies and these tools because of a hack I heard from a professional cyclist that was so bored of riding for 4 and 5 hours a day, he started listening to books. And I'm like, if I can go through an investment book on a bike ride, I can blaze through 100 books in a year.
Right.
Before I passed the real estate exam, I was probably more knowledgeable than most investors out there because I used the tools.
Can I tell you my philosophy on that?
Sure.
It's because 99.9% of you out there are learning through experience.
That's how I learn.
Hold on. In the new economy, experience is the slowest fucking way to learn.
Of course.
You have to wait till something happens
to learn
before you learn.
I get it.
So everyone said, I got 20 years experience. The first thing that goes off in my head is, oh, shit.
You've been lazy for like 17 of them.
All my effort into this person.
Of course.
It's not necessarily lazy. They might be hard workers. But we've pride, even our resumes, like we pride people with experience, and we should respect experience because experience does teach you a lot of things. The most important things that teach you is probably anticipation, resilience, confidence. You build a lot of those innate skills through experience. Okay, you can hang in there basically.
Of course.
You're not going to fall over and cry every time something happens necessarily with experience, which is okay too for a minute, but not for a year.
That's right.
All right, so experience is the slowest possible way to learn, and that's part of the problem. Is people go, oh, I learned something every day, Joe. You mean you go to work every day is what you mean, and you do the same thing every day. If I jump back into how I've been able to help double and triple thousands of people's incomes in sales, it's not through motivation. I'll tell you the 3 things that have to happen in order to do that. Number 1, you have to teach them new skills. That's difficult to do when you're in an industry where the only skills that you know are the ones that have been handed down to you. Now, guys, pay attention to what I'm going to say because I'm going to drop a freaking huge bomb right here that might send you back into your company right now to make some changes. I call people in sales first cousins. You know why I call them that?
Why is that?
Because they all sound the same.
Right.
They all come from the same trees and branches. Salespeople bounce around a lot, right?
They sure do.
So most of the sales skills out there were either learned in a book written in like the 90s or a reversion of it from like 10 years ago. Would you hire a programmer who hasn't recertified themselves for 12 years to come program your technology?
Yeah, absolutely not.
Or your iPhone? No, you wouldn't. And communication is the new technology. What did he say? Yeah, I just said communication is the new form of technology. Why do I call verbal communication and written communication a technology? Because it needs to advance like technology does. It needs to be upgraded, fine-tuned, and perfected every single year.
Like a podcast.
Not quicker, right. So when I go into an industry, I find that over 80% of their language patterns on the phone have been in their industry for a while.
And it's a script, like, you know what I mean? It's just an old sales script.
Well, whether it's old or new, people hand down skills.
Right. The philosophies behind what they're selling, right, is literally handed down from who was ever crushing it before.
Take the real estate and mortgage industry,
of course.
I mean, this is going to sound like a shocker, but when I'm coaching these people, and listen, when we train them, they're fascinated, they get excited, they understand that they're about to make some major breakthroughs through some of my training. But we stop saying words like application, qualification, run your credit, lower rate, right? Benefit. We stop saying those words. Now, how many companies do you think use those words in those industries?
All of them.
Oh, come on, bro. Every single one.
Of course.
Every single one. Okay, how many real estate agents do you say, I'm going to get you the most value in the quickest amount of time?
All of them.
Every single one. How many of them go on videos and go, hey, we're here at 3121 so-and-so drive. Look at this view. It's beautiful. Pretty soon, we're going to adapt to those videos too, and they're just going to be entertainment. We're not even going to listen to them anymore.
We already have, like, the top producing real estate agents are creating tons of cool, fun to watch content, again, with some of those same concepts, but it's spun out different because we've already been normalized to those already. It's happening so fast.
Right.
And there's a gentleman, his name's Tim Smith, he created a video that went viral, that was on the news around a $48 million listing because he created a song called Teach Me How to Duffy.
That's so cool.
And it blew up. But like,
Teach me how to what?
Teach
Duffy?
me how to Duffy
that's so
with
sick.
a Duffy boat that he
That's
pulled
so
up to
sick.
this $48 million listing.
Right.
So that's being creative because the branding he was using was already getting like a little bit tired.
Yeah. So one of the things I tell companies, and here's a freebie for you guys out there that want to go to work right away, because I know at least 80% of you out there are in some type of selling. Whether you're an entrepreneur, real estate agent, you're in financing, you own a business, you know, there's a lot of people out there saying, look, everybody's in sales. Sales is just a word. It's a man-created word to describe persuasion. But it doesn't matter if you're in a relationship or you're raising kids. I mean, the persuasion is key, especially when you have good morals, right?
Of course.
One of my standards is to make sure I understand all compliance, all ethical standards in every industry, and we abide by those. But one of the things you can do today, challenge yourself. Go into your sales team and listen to everything that's saying, or look at your scripts, and remove every single word, phrase, or question that is asked in your industry, except for the mandatory qualifying questions.
Right.
Even those can be reworded, and I'll tell you why. Because patterns, whether you're at the bar saying, can I get you a drink? Or on the phone saying, let me just ask you a few questions, create resistant states in customers.
Of course.
You want the easiest example? Every time I give somebody this example, they start going, oh my God, Joe, I noticed it right away. Just go to the mall. Just go shopping somewhere. And walk into a store where the average item is $2,000 and walk into a store where the average item is $20. They all say the same shit. What's the first 3 lines you hear when you walk into a store?
Hey, can I help you?
Can I help you find anything? Are you looking for anything in particular? Right? Can I help you find a certain size? How's your day going? And those, how many times have customers heard those patterns?
Thousands, which creates defense mechanisms in their psyche, right?
That's happening in your industry.
Of course.
Whatever your industry is.
All of them.
All of them.
That's right.
And so it's just, again, well, what do we say instead? I'm like, what, you don't know English? I'm like, first of all, if you're in an environment where you have a person walking in or you're going to meet in person,
how about being personal with it?
Stop looking. There you go. Stop looking at the person. First of all, adjust your skills so that the person is not a customer and they're not a transaction.
They're
not a funding.
Right.
They're a friend. You're meeting a new friend. You're creating a new friendship. Now, that's a very generic way to say it, and it doesn't get into strategy that I really teach. But it helps you to understand, wow, I am talking to these people like they're my customer, not like I want to get to know them. So that helps a lot in retail or face-to-face. But it's not enough to make game-changing moves in some of the other industries that I've worked with, like, you know, lending businesses, law firms, surgery centers, tech businesses, schools, you know, and bigger teams on the technology side and whatnot, B2B. So, but you kind of get the gist, right? You kind of get these patterns exist. Now, let's add to that. Let's go ahead and add to that, that with all the technology we have, how much more do you think people are sold on a weekly basis?
100,000 times more than they were last year.
100,000 more times than they were before.
That's right.
So that means that they're adapting to the patterns much more quickly, which means if I create something for an industry and it catches fire, within a year or so, what will probably happen?
Not going to work anymore.
Well, it's not that it's not going to work. People out there, dude, we do pretty good. There's guys out there right now listening to this going, dude, our office does really good. We're actually, Joe, we're an exception to the rule.
Right.
Every fucking company I've ever been to has said that. And you might be. I've met some amazing people. But I'm going to go into a new topic, which has to do with performance. So I talked about the matrix of mediocrity, right? So here's one of the biggest problems I see in any industry, in any culture. I don't care if you have a clothing store or a yoga studio or you own a health club or a mortgage company or whatever the case may be. We reward people for doing a little above below average.
That's right.
I call it the top producer mindfuck.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
We take amazing people who are capable of much more, and once they do better than the onesies and twosies that everybody else is doing, they go, you're a top producer. Now, as soon as you tell me that, what happens to my mind?
Your ego inflates, one, but two, it's really dangerous. And I talk about this in great depth.
Right.
Is so many people set these targets that aren't high enough, and they actually hit them. And that creates a psychology around what you can do and can't do. And if you have a lot of people that are around you that's giving you the attaboys and attagirls and you're the greatest and you're a quote unquote, air quote, top producer,
Right.
what's going to, like, you have to be wildly self-motivated to keep breaking through that ceiling.
You do. You know, when I see that happening, it's usually children or people who come from extreme environments.
That's right.
Your family were extreme athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Your father was in the Marines for 20 years.
Yep.
Somebody in your family is extremely successful, and you want to be like Big Brother.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So that's usually what's happening. Very rarely do you find a person who's just an anomaly. Like
Right.
they're just a badass on their own. They just I am.
That's
going
right.
to do this,
That's
you
right.
know?
It's rare.
Their identity has been strengthened somehow in their own mind. For me, it was through doubt, naysaying, and being challenged and so forth as a kid. And that's the same with a lot of champions.
Me too.
However, yeah, for sure. But here's what I'm getting at. In most industries, the average conversion ratio is from lead to close is somewhere between 8 to 12%.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
Yeah.
And so if you get somebody that goes to, let's say, 15 to 20%, they're a top producer. And then that becomes the culture. So if you're doing 8 to 12% and you're safe, there's no threat.
It's a very key word you touched on.
You're
Safe.
And if you're doing a little bit above that, you're amazing.
Mm-hmm. You're still at 20%.
So here's the way I say it. You have practice perfected and are repeating a strategic method to lose 80% of your business.
Mm. I want you to repeat that one more time, just so you guys can really, really let that sit in to every cell in your body. Go ahead again.
So we have selective memory as business people, as sales professionals as well. We like to remember our wins. That's why if I ask who'd you close, you remember the name. If I ask you who you didn't, you don't remember the name.
Mm-hmm.
We also put whiteboards up where we measure what you did right. They should put a whiteboard right next to it calculating the income that you lost.
Mm-hmm.
That's called a virtual whiteboard. I do that when my clients are ready, not right away. There's a progression of discipline.
Because you can crush their confidence. I get it.
Exactly. And I want to provide the tools first before I apply pressure. First I develop skills, then I add the pressure, then I change culture.
Just like lifting weights.
Exactly. Tools first. Teach them new skills. Practice. Be patient. Help them trust themselves. Speak well to them. Respect them. Teach them. Then monitor them. Measure them. Then add the pressure, the accountability, and then work on the culture.
Mm-hmm.
People try to change the culture before they get the buy-in from their people.
And that's when people run for the hills because they get afraid. The fear kicks in.
They start talking shit on smoke breaks. And
That's
stuff
right.
like that.
Exactly.
Let's go to this other company. And anyway, so getting back to that, what I said was, if you're closing, let's say, 18 to 25% of your business, and you're a rock star on your team, be careful. You're trapped in the matrix of mediocrity. Would you watch your favorite athlete shoot 25% and go, "You're a rock star"? No.
Shaq.
But just from the free throw line.
That's right.
But he dominated in other areas.
That's right.
and,
That's right. No one's touching him.
So he compensated, right?
Of course.
But if you were watching Kobe or somebody and he shot 25%, would you be like, hand the guy a trophy?
Nope.
And then do the same thing for 20 years or 5 years or even 6 months? You get it?
100%.
So you're practicing and perfecting a way to lose 80% of your business. Be careful. Because just because you memorized your sales approach and you're confident in it doesn't mean you're converting. Confidence is not the same as conversion. It's a great tool. But just because you memorized and you're good at saying what you say doesn't mean that you are truly by nature a top producer.
I
Does
agree.
that make sense?
Perfect sense.
Right. So that's why, I make it from the get-go, some believe it, some don't, but I tell my clients and even my friends, you should be shooting for anywhere between 30 to 60%, depending on what your industry is.
Agreed.
And even that can be improved.
It all can be improved.
That's how you double and triple people's income.
And there's ways to do that in so many different facets, where there are times when I'm putting too much time into work and my body slips. And other times I'll be putting too much time into my health that my business will slip. So I'm in this constant, dance of if I'm tired because I'm not taking care of my body physically, so my production at work goes down, that's a problem. Yeah. So there's all these, and same thing with my non-negotiables and my meditation. Right. So
you just created 5 podcasts.
I know. So I apologize, but I wanted to put into context, I'm constantly doing that dance.
You look really excited right now.
I am, because I'm fired up, because I love this shit. Because so many people think, like, I made $17 million. Yeah, but you're a shit dad. And you're a terrible husband. And you're 100 pounds overweight.
You just flipped the page to a whole nother area of, we know that there's not really a such thing as balance in extreme success.
There's not.
And we're also not saying that extreme success should be the same for everyone.
It's totally individualized.
Right. And, so it doesn't come down. At some point, we have to realize that money does give you more control over your life.
It's just a tool.
And it helps you to provide and to create new resources and leverage for yourself and for your loved ones that they didn't have before.
Agreed.
And that's important. We're not saying that that is going to make you ultimately feel successful at the end of the day. What you're referring to probably will. But we could go on that topic for an hour.
At least.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to bring it back, and we're
Yes.
going to stay on this because we're talking about the velocity of the economy,
Right.
getting stuck in the mediocrity matrix because you think you're producing 20 to 25% in your company and you're the greatest. But to Joe's point, you're actually leaving 75 to 80% on the table.
Yeah.
Way to go.
So you're not aware of that probably because what I call the matrix, I always say, when I made that tipping point and decided to become a coach, and then the economy fell, and I realized, I can't just train mortgage companies anymore. Either they don't want me, or they're going broke. And then the reality of the situation was, I had become pretty well networked in Orange County at that time, working with such a fast-growing company and being in the social sector, being a very social person. But yeah, kind of got to be honest with yourself. And if your phone's not ringing, it means you probably don't provide enough value.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when the hardcore studying and be like, okay, there's obviously many, 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 many things I and my peers don't know. Where do I start? Where do I go? Because if I go to my friends, they're in the same matrix I'm in. If I go to my managers, they're also in my matrix. If I go to my family, they're barely in my matrix.
That's right.
Right? Amazing people. I love those guys. You know how many talented people I've met that are stuck in the matrix?
Probably most.
Most.
Mm-hmm.
Most. And they can't see it. I call them zombies.
Mm-hmm.
That's my funny word for it. Zombies everywhere. I can see when you're a zombie. I can see it in your eyes just driving down the road. I can see that you're trapped in some type of a daily cyclical cycle that you don't even know that was programmed into you because you were not like that at 7 years old.
Nope.
You were not. Anyway, so when you're performing at that level, you have to be careful and separate yourself from the rest. Because if you're talking to, let's say, 10 qualified prospects a day, or even 5, and you close 1, how the hell is it that you still go home, have dinner, you get into that everyday robotic conversation, hi, honey, how was your day? Honey says, good. How was yours? Oh, busy, the usual. How is everything at the office? Pretty good. Ups and downs. Marketing was a little slow. We're doing all right. You find all these distractions to hide the truth. Here's what I tell people. What if I made you wear a T-shirt every day that you wore home that showed how much money you brought in and how much you lost?
That's awesome. I think you should. I think everybody should wear those.
Visual accountability is very difficult. In fact, in many organizations that I've been, this is why, my level of intensity is not necessarily for every company, although I would argue that it might be. And I'll tell you why. It's because they can't have me there. The culture, the people that they have in charge fear massive accountability.
There's nowhere to hide.
It exposes you.
That's right.
And so imagine that though, right? And so some of these sales agents that have really, really done better, they actually have a whiteboard at home now. And they sit down and they have conversations with their wife, like, how'd you do today? Well, I was able to get this, I was able to do that. So I made X today, but I still lost that. So I'm going to go listen to my calls, or I'm going to work on what Joe said, or I'm going to practice these new techniques that we're developing in the office for a little bit before dinner. Is that okay with you?
And it's fun because you're learning. As human beings, when we're learning something new, it's literally when we're the most excited.
It is.
I know.
It is. But there's a few components that get people stuck in that mindset. And it's usually everyone around them is in it too. And neither them or the people around them even know that they're stuck in it.
Of course.
So what you should be doing is if you close 1 out of 5 customers or 2 out of 5 customers, you should be asking, why specifically wasn't I able to be effective with the others? Because what your mind will start doing is start creating excuses.
Of course.
Oh, that
and
person
blaming them. Exactly.
That person was an asshole. Oh, this guy's dumb. Oh, this guy's wife wears the pants. Oh, this guy's right. No, dude. You got 2 people on the phone. Each one has a brain and a heart. Okay? It says that you're supposed to be a professional communicator. My salespeople, I don't even call salespeople anymore. I call them communication experts. Because if I call them communication experts, then what should you study?
Communication.
Communication. If I tell you a salesperson, what do you study?
Sales.
Sales.
Not communication.
Which means 99% of what you're studying is probably outdated. I'm not saying it won't work, but it's not going to be the material that gets you to 40 to 50%.
That's right.
It's going to keep you stuck where you are.
So how do we give them the gems to tie this whole thing together that we're talking about and close this thing out? How do we get them to the mindset that they at least know what's possible?
Yeah, first accept the reality that in the new economy, if you don't commit to aggressively learning in your trade or in your profession or career or what have you, right, your side job, then your quality of life is going to go down over the next 5 to 7 years.
Agreed.
Because we're moving so fast that the way you provide value today is not going to be worth as much in a few years. Your experience is not fast enough. So you have to have some type of weekly, daily routine. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you study and learn, and you study people who are doing what you do, but they do it better. Or you're online looking for new research in psychology. You know, one of the things that really made a game-changing difference for me, and I'll share this because it'll give you guys out there an idea of what to do. I stopped reading sales material about 8 years ago because I started to notice that it was becoming hardcore patterns. And even when I meant to sincerely, out of my heart, help a customer, they wouldn't say yes.
Because you came off salesy.
Because I didn't, in my mind, I'm not salesy.
I get it. But
Even the line, I'm not trying to sell you.
right. But you
It's
might
a
not be
sales pattern.
communicating at the level
Even
that
that
you
line
want
is
to.
a sales pattern.
I get it. I get it.
But because I was learning from other people in sales, our patterns sounded the same. That's why we're all first cousins. So what did I start studying? I started studying neuroscience because there is more information out there right now on how the brain works in the past 5 to 7 years than there ever has been in the history of the world.
I agree.
So that's massive. Okay. Started studying how the brain works. Okay. The other thing that I study is modern psychology. So I go to, some of the more popular methods I use are through like Harvard Business Research, Forbes Research, the Gallup Foundation. It's amazing how many people are in business and sales and don't know who the Gallup Foundation is. It's only the largest research company in the world that studies human behavior, sales professionals, business professionals, organizational behavior, right? And they do massive studies over the course of years with numbers that you could never touch in your life.
Might be a good thing to look up.
Yeah, there you go. So, people don't know. Why don't they know? Because nobody around you knows either. You're stuck in the matrix.
What you don't know will hurt you. I say it in business. I say it personally. What you don't know and the people that you're around that you don't know you need to be around will definitely hurt you. 100%.
Yeah, even if they love you.
Especially love you because
so I have this,
that's almost worse sometimes.
I have this joke, right? Once people get it, I go, so you're going to have to go home tonight. You're going to have to tell your kids and your wife, look, I'm out. You guys are too mediocre. Call your cousins. Sorry. No, I'm kidding. And they're like, are you serious? I'm like, no, dude. You got to tell your 8-year-old, you got to hit the road, Jack.
Yep.
So what I mean is you have to allocate your time differently. So you can also help your loved ones even more so by them seeing you make progress. It's addictive. It's like a magnet.
And it's leading by example.
But, when it comes to friends and this and that and going and hanging out, whatever you feel you need in your life that does add some happiness, as long as it's not completely destructive to your health or whatnot, go ahead and do it. But realize maybe an hour of it, not 5 hours of it. Okay?
Everybody sedates in their own way.
Yeah.
Everybody escapes in their
Yeah.
own way. Some people it's
Sure.
food, drinks, drugs, sports. They like to binge watch TV shows. Everybody has
Sure.
their stuff.
I'll tell you what mine is. My toughest one. I grew up in an extremely social family, especially my mother. She's like social butterfly. She's a powerhouse. Like everybody in her city knows her cooking. You walk in her house, dude, you're going to have like a 5-course meal within 20 minutes. She's got like 3 freezers and she lives alone. All right. So now I've been away from my family for 20 years. From my immediate family. 20 years. And so I have to get my social fix. So I have to go meet up with my friends. I got to go meet up with my friends, just hang out, talk, have dinner, have a drink, whatever. But it's so important for me to maintain a sense of belonging, a sense of
connection.
that I have to be disciplined enough to go, Okay, I'll do that once a week. Not every time there's something going on. You know, right now, 10 years ago, we had like 15 friends.
Mm-hmm.
How many do we have now?
A lot.
Shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I know him. Well, that's also one of the annoying things about society. Doesn't matter. I was going to introduce you to a really, really good friend of mine, Ali. And I'm like, dude, I got to introduce you to Andy. He's cool. You'd be perfect on the spot. Oh, I already talked to him. Shit. I'm like, can you just please pretend that you don't know anybody for like a day so that I don't get all, right? You know, everybody knows everybody. That's also why it's so important to maintain a strong reputation.
No, I agree. And it's everything for me. Like,
Yeah.
I've really prided myself for my entire career on just doing the right thing, being a good person, trying to over-deliver value everywhere I can, and and really stepping behind my reputation. And I really believe in it.
I mean, we're going to mess up, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even, can you count the number of mistakes or embarrassing situations?
It's in the millions. And now I mess up on camera. Now I mess up publicly. So now everything is just like whatever. But that was
around forever.
Yeah, and that was a choice I made, though, because I want my kids, I want my great-great-grandkids to see my struggles and stumbles and falls and be like, that fucker never stopped.
Yeah.
He got hit in the face with 2x4s and kept walking.
Right, man. I mean, just so we can properly serve, you know, your listeners, and hopefully, you know, they can relate. I think one of the things that we do is we listen selfishly. So we listen to something and we don't think who else could benefit from this. It's fucking free.
Free.
It wasn't like this just 8 years ago. And I mean, even when I had to live out of my car for 4.5 months, there wasn't very many moments where I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? It's kind of cool. Like, I remember when I worked at the health club, I would show up at like 5 in the morning and like leave at midnight. And I remember management being like, you guys should be like Joe. He has amazing work ethic. Look at this. And I remember just
and he's never late because he literally sleeps in the parking lot.
Nobody knew for like 3.5 months because I would keep changing the location of my car.
Of course.
And I wouldn't go out to my car until everybody was gone. So they just thought I had amazing work ethic. In the back of my head, I'm like, I ain't got no place to go, dog.
I know, man.
and the gym was perfect because you can shower. I would pay the girls that worked at the gym a few dollars to do my laundry from time to time, and you know, keep myself, you know, sharp. At that time, I was still sort of, you know, in fitness, sort of competing. So I was like 5% body fat. You know, 24 years old.
Dedicated.
You know, that whole thing, ready to go. And I could work out. I knew working out was going to be a big part of me making it through that tough time. But the reason I brought that up is because there were a few times where unexpectedly and out of nowhere, I collapsed. I remember this one specific time in that gym. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning. I wanted to shower and get dressed before anybody showed up. And literally, I wasn't thinking about anything. And all of a sudden, I just collapsed on my knees and started crying. Hardcore. For like 20 minutes. I even like shifted. This is before cold water was cool. I shifted the water to cold because I'm like, God damn, my eyes are so swollen. How the hell am I going to like walk onto the sales floor right now? And I look like I've been crying my 20 minutes. And so my point is, you know, I think that has to happen. You have to allow yourself to get extremely emotional.
And break.
And then you go, that's enough. Got it out of my system. Because whatever story you're telling yourself, it doesn't take a month to recover.
Nope.
Went through a breakup. Lost my job. Got into a bad car accident. My relationship didn't work out. Made a mistake at work. Somebody told me I wasn't good enough. Whatever it is, you have way too much access to people like us and other caring people out there that are telling you, dude, cry your cry and get the fuck up.
And let's roll.
Get the fuck up. And then do something you love right away, whatever it is. You want to read. You like to cook something that makes you feel better. Cook something. Make a phone call to somebody you love. Do something that triggers it. For me, it was working out. Every time I go through tough times, it's gym.
Yeah, and find what works for you.
Right.
And that is a perfect way to actually close the show out, is like, find what works for you. Use the tools that have been provided. And Joe's hit about 100,000 gems on here. So if you need to go back and listen to it, go back, listen to the podcast, take some notes, really understand why the economy is going in the direction it is and at the pace it is, and why a lot of the stuff that Joe's talking about could really change your trajectory over the next 2 to 3 to 5 years. Joe, thank you so much for coming in, man.
You got it, man.
Dropping tons and tons of value. Where can everybody find you? Websites, social media, everything.
Yeah, so just to keep it simple, plug and play, just go to Instagram, Joe Coach, one word, Joe Coach. And I'm on all the different mediums and platforms. You know, Joe Coach is the easiest way to find me. And then I rap stories every day. I'm dropping all kinds of magic while I'm driving. I visit 4 to 5 companies a day still, while I'm also, traveling and making appearances and doing video conferences and all kinds of stuff. So that's the best way to hit me. And I am constantly in touch with my viewers. I don't care if you're 12 years old or 60 years old. I keep in touch with everyone because, I know I've been in a lot of places those people have been. I've been that 12-year-old who's made fun of. I've been that 18-year-old who somebody said, you're not going to graduate. You're not going to do this. Just go get a job. I've been that 28-year-old who was like, damn it, why am I going broke again? I've been that 35-year-old that's like, shit, when am I finally going to pop? Right? So I have respect for everyone. And the other thing I learned when we leave, and this is for all the leaders out there, especially for all of you out there who are influencers or coaches or mentors or in some way, maybe it's an athletic team. You never know who's in your audience and what they're going through. You never know who's in your audience and what they're going through. So if you're going to serve correct.
That's a mic drop. Serve correct, be of service.
There you go.
Joe, you are the man. Thank you again.
Love you, buddy.
Have an amazing, amazing day, afternoon, morning, wherever you're at in your life. We will see you guys next time.